Okay, welcome to another episode of the County Business Talks podcast. My guest today is a highly experienced professional within the telecoms industry and someone that has been helping people and businesses connect for over 20 years. He's the managing director of Rubix VT, the one and only Nick Poyner. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Good to finally be here.
Mate, we've talked about this for a while, haven't we?
We've talked about it for a long time. Yeah, it's no, we had that cancelled or postponed event.
But yeah.
It's good to finally be sat in the chair, Sam.
Mate, absolutely. No, mate, look, I'm buzzing to have you on, and it's been great, obviously, seeing the growth of the journey over the last couple of years, and obviously getting to know you a little bit more as well. So look, mate, but we're going to jump straight in as always. Just with everyone just starting with their story and just telling people a little bit about life growing up for you, what that was like, and a little bit about something about your early years that, you know, I guess shapes the person who sits here today.
Sure. Okay. So I'm one of three. I'm the eldest child, and I think it's fair to say that we didn't have the easiest sort of upbringing. And that my family weren't exactly flush with cash. There was lots of times when there wasn't even sort of food on the table, and my parents' relationship was very sort of up and down, and that ultimately culminated in them sort of splitting up a few times, but ultimately ended up in them sort of getting divorced. And sort of being the eldest one, it always seemed that I was the adult, if that makes sort of sense, and sort of had sort of a lot of responsibility from day one, really. And I think that's certainly one thing that's really sort of shaped the way I am, and that I've taken through into my own sort of actual adult life. Because I always sort of had to be there for my for my siblings and stuff, whether that be sort of cooking dinner or whatever that might be.
So how old were you when they finally split up? Your mum and dad.
The actual final thing, I was 15 when it finally happened, and it was all very dramatic and all that there. When you sort of reflect back on these things, but it had been going on for a good sort of number of years, and my dad sort of in and out of work and stuff like that. And I think it's fair to say that we as a family we did struggle, and it took me sort of years later, sort of going through therapy to sort of process all that and sort of break all that down, which is something that I pushed against for a number of years.
Why did you feel you pushed against it?
I think it's just that typical bravado. No, I'm fine, and you just smile and wave and just carry on. There's nothing to see here, and just you just internalise everything. And I don't think, or rather, I do. I think without going through that therapy, I'm not sure I'd actually be here as Rubix either today.
Wow.
So it was something that, having eventually taken it on, I truly sort of embraced ultimately.
I think it's so, again, I guess highlights so much that the necessity, I guess, for people to talk about feelings or talk about, problems they've got, or, just subjects around that side of things, just to help people through different processes, because especially blokes, so much, the amount of people I talk to on here, and I speak about it myself a lot, that we do that a lot, don't we? Yeah, no, I'm fine. Everything's okay,
absolutely.
And it's a difficult So I just want to talk a little bit about that. I guess then that sort of at 15 that they split up, and like you said, you taking on that role because how old were your siblings then around that sort of time?
So my sister would have been 11, and my brother, who's not very good at maths. My brother, who's 8 years younger than me, would have been 7, wouldn't he? Yeah. So it's that they very much sort of looked to me then as their father figure, I guess you could say. Albeit I had to do a lot of sort of self-preservation at that time.
Yeah. And how was your relationship from that point, like with your mum and dad sort of growing up then? Do you still have a good relationship with them despite them obviously splitting up, or?
Yeah, it wasn't really with my dad, albeit sort of the breakup wasn't his fault at that sort of time. But takes two to tango, doesn't it?
Yeah,
But the my relationship with him was, I wouldn't say strange, but strained. But we very much sort of we didn't connect. We didn't really see each other that sort of much, and I guess part of the protection was this. I was trying to be there for my mum as well, type thing.
Yeah, sure.
I say, albeit trying to sort of self preserve as well. Because it was a really sort of difficult time, as it is for any kid that has to go through it, and sort of coming up for exam time and stuff like that. But there was always this focus on that. I needed to earn money. I needed to bring money into the house to support my mum and my brother and sister and stuff. And
because what was so at that time then, from a career point of view, or what was your mindset? Where did you not have an idea that you'd like to do something, or was it, look, I just need to get out and earn some money? And when you come to the end of education, what was your, because you left school at 16, right?
Yeah. So left school in that sort of summer of wasn't sort of quite 16 by the time I sort of done my GCSEs and stuff, but I'd had sort of small ventures, from quite an early age, really. And be it I'd worked with my uncle, had a landscaping business, and I'd sort of work with him. But then the village that we lived in, I took on this egg round, and with Stonegate Farms. And coincidentally, many years later, Bruce Hayter, who used to be a director of Stonegate Farms, we recently found out a couple of years ago now that he used to be a director at the time that I had this egg round. And
it's a small world.
It is a very small world, but they used to deliver eggs to me on a Friday night, and I built up my round in the village, and I'd go and deliver eggs on a Saturday and Sunday. And make some money. And also, you could have, one of the other attractions at that time was that you could have as many of the eggs as you wanted. So that ultimately helped to sort of put food on the table as well.
Yeah.
So it was so I've had, over the years, as a kid, I had sort of many sort of little ventures like that. Bought a bit of cash in and so on. So I think it was always there that I would at some stage
go on and
and have my own gig.
But did you have, like, at that point, like, at school, like, I left school, I stayed on and done A levels, but failed them. But my thing was I was going to be a footballer. I didn't, that weren't ever going to work. Didn't work out. So I was really like, didn't have a clue really what I was going to do. Like, was there a path that you wanted to take, or was there something that what was your passion, I guess, around that time, or was that just because you had to sort of, I guess, grow up so quick? Was it just a case of, look, I need to get out, and I'll get into the working world and go and find a job that's going to pay me money?
Yeah, my passion was law.
Right, okay.
I always wanted to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And it's something that I looked at, and I sort of tried. So when I first left school, I actually hadn't left school. I'd completed my GCSEs, and a very good friend of mine, who I'm sure we'll come on to as part of this, he was working in London at the time, and said to me, right, come out to London, get yourself a job, you can earn some money during the summer. So I finished my GCSEs on the Thursday. On the Monday, I took there used to be a coach that went up from the village up to London, and he showed me Brook Street Recruitment Agency on the Strand, and went in there, and this fresh-faced young lad, and I said to them, I'm looking for a temporary job. They were very much, well, we don't have anything, immediately, but being sort of tenacious, I guess, I thought, well, I'm sure if I sit around, you'll find me something. And in fairness, they did. Within a couple of hours, I was working for London Underground in their data entry team. I mean, it was as boring as anything. Sorry to all the data entry people out there, but it wasn't my bag.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I started to earn a bit of cash, weekly, doing that, and with an intention that I was always going back after the summer to do my A levels, right, with a view that I wanted to go into law. At the time, they used to have these magazines that were given out at the stations, so I picked one up, and there was loads of jobs that were advertised in there. And there was one being advertised for an office junior with the solicitors in Harley Street. And I thought, well, that's quite interesting. I might be able to get myself in there, and because by now I was starting to earn money as well. Might be able to get myself in there, and and work my way a different path. So managed to get this job. They paid me a whole £6,000 a year as my annual salary.
Nice.
At the time, and it involved a bit more than sort of office junior. They were criminal defence lawyers. They had me go into court, sit behind a barrister, and take notes of the case, and then report it back. And then that sort of led on to going in to do conferences with barristers in their chambers, going on to do prison visits. And then I joined my second company of solicitors opposite the ITN building in Gray's Inn Road. Stephen Fiddler was the name of the company. Great name for a solicitor.
Nice.
And what he got me doing was going to police stations when a client had been arrested. Again, they were criminal defence lawyers. And I'd have to go to these police stations. Bearing in mind, I'm like 16 years old. But although I've always sort of been and had to be older than my age, but he'd have me going to these police stations and sitting in on the police interviews with the advice of just tell the client, no comment, and just get them back to the office. If you can get them bail, get them back to the office, and then a solicitor would take over. Now, you can't do that today because you need to be legally qualified to do it.
Because obviously Kelly, as you know, like my wife's a criminal solicitor, so she police station trained and stuff.
Yeah.
You have to have that accreditation, don't you, to be able to go. But you was doing that prior to.
I was doing that at 16.
Wow.
And when some of the things that I was exposed to with some of the clients, you can imagine some of the cases that I covered.
Wow,
and
I bet.
some of the things I saw, which no 16-year-old should have to see. But then I look back, was it a different world then? I think things certainly got let go a lot sooner. And it was there. Then I decided that this is definitely what I want to do. The criminal law side of things definitely interested me, and so I would go back to do my A-levels, and that's when I went off to college in Maidstone. And took a part-time job working for Tesco. But it very quickly became that I was used to earning the money, most certainly, and I needed to put money into the household as well, and the shifts became more at Tesco, and it just became that I couldn't continue down that path, and so I had to go back into paid employment. On a full-time basis.
Looking back now, obviously you've had your journey and stuff, but do you look back now with any regret around that? Do you look at that and was a path that maybe you really wanted to take and maybe wish you had gone down that in some way? Or
personally, I think we can dwell too much on stuff like that, and that I'm sure it probably would have worked out. Maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. But I don't have any regrets around it. I did what I did. I chose the path that I chose, and I forged a life of it. And I've had a very good life, sort of in doing that. It's you look back and sometimes you think, well, if I'd gone down that road, would I have met my wife?
Yeah.
Would I have had my kids? So I tend not to dwell on that stuff too much, and I think. Ultimately, that's probably why I ended up in therapy. Is because I did just internalise it and just dealt with that. Let's move on. So,
because it might and that's a great way. Because I'm similar to that. I actually, with no regrets. Of course, we can all look back and go, "Oh, if I had taken that path."
Yeah.
We, like you say, we never know if certain things potentially happen for a reason, and we're in the position. My sort of outlook has always been you do the best you can with what you've got at that time, and that's the decision you make. Whether that was the right one there and then, we don't know because we didn't go down that path. So you like you say, there's that untried. I mean, being married to a criminal solicitor, I think you probably took the right path, mate. If I'm being honest with you, she, as much as she loves it, she will say, money is not great, and it's a tough industry now, certainly to be in. Like it's completely changed to what it would have been back many years ago with budget cuts, etc. So a difficult thing. But so you've gone from that then, and almost I guess not so much forced into it, but you had to, like you said, you had to become an adult and provide, I guess, for for your family, for your siblings and your mum, and support them, and see, well, I've got to get out there and am, and I've got to earn some more money. So what's that next path, and then where does sort of telecoms sort of come into it? When does that?
Well, telecoms comes into it a little bit, more sort of way down the path, really, because what happened from that part-time job at Tesco was I knew that I needed to get into something sort of full-time, and Sainsbury's were offering a trainee manager scheme, and I thought, well, Tesco's experience, let's apply for that. It was kind of sales, although I did learn sort of down the line it wasn't sort of direct selling as I once thought it was. And so I applied and I was accepted, but the job with Sainsbury's wasn't starting until the September in 1993, and my first posting was Brighton. So I lived in Kent at the time, and so I sort of got the job in the February of '93, and so I went to my local Sainsbury's to explain that I'd got this trainee manager job started in the September in Brighton, but I needed a job in the meantime, and local Sainsbury's took me on, and what I used that time for was to learn each and every department and get as much knowledge as I could. So that when I did move to Brighton in September, my training should have been 18 months. But I'd kind of learnt a majority of the stuff I needed, and so I managed to sort of fast track that. And within 8 months, I'd sort of passed my trainee manager ship, or whatever you want to call it. And then I was given my first department. And then for the next 3.5 years, I worked for Sainsbury's, and eventually I finished up at a store over in Worthing as the manager over there.
Wow, I didn't. Yeah, this is one of the reasons I love. Obviously, one of the reasons I love doing the podcast and getting to know people more, because it's stuff that people share their journey and their story, things that you wouldn't have a clue about. Like I sit knowing you as being in telecoms for so long, and obviously running Rubix now, and it's great to find out where that whole journey sort of starts and goes for. So managing Sainsbury's, and then what's the next stage? And after that, where do you?
So I decided to stop working for Sainsbury's in the May of where are we, '96, and I'd been down the seafront at the Fortuna Wall one day, and they were particularly busy, and I said that if they were ever short staffed, I wasn't particularly doing anything for the summer, I'd give them a hand. 2 weeks later, the assistant manager called me, and I had a flat up in Buckingham Road, up by the station. And he called me and said, it's Neil from the Fortuna War. I was very surprised. I'd completely forgotten the conversation from 2 weeks ago. And he said, you could work if we needed it. We're short-staffed tonight. It was a Thursday night. Are you free? I was like, yeah, go for it. Come down. And I got there, and there was this young girl working behind the bar, just the two of us. And she'd been pulled down from what was the Nelly Peck, which I think is now called Molly Malone's in West Street. And she'd been pulled down to work there, so the two of us started working, got on really well, and it's our 25th wedding anniversary this June.
Wow!
So that's how we met.
And as we say, things happen for a reason.
Things happen for a reason, yeah, exactly. And then from there, and sort of doing a couple of stints at a pub. Yeah. And I then went into recruitment, finally, working for Brook Street.
Right. So that first company you went and set up in London?
Yes. Yeah. So I took a job with them based in just off Churchill Square, when they were there. So and I set up the sales and IT department there, because I could see there was definitely a need at that stage, and it was very much sort of secretarial admin office sort of role. Yeah. And within 11 months, I was looking for staff for a telecoms company based over in New Haven, and they asked if I'd be interested in joining them. I pushed it back at first because I was doing quite well in the recruitment game. Yeah. Pushed it back at first, but then decided to accept a role and started with them in 1998. Wow. That was my first telecoms job.
And then, where along this line and like in this period, where's your mindset at in regards to like starting your own business? Was there something like you mentioned back at school, I'd done little bits and pieces and other things. There was maybe something always underlying, but going on that career path as you had done when was the point where that started to ignite, where you sort of think, I'm going to do it? Was it when you got into telecoms that you sort of think, actually, I could maybe do something like this and run it, or before then? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think within a couple of years of being in telecoms, it's something that I could see myself doing as my own business. Equally at that stage, we'd had our first child as well, and ultimately, comes expense with the kids, and so on, and it was something that I definitely wanted to do, and I did briefly. I subsequently joined my second sort of telecoms company, and then I did briefly jump out of that to start a business with somebody else.
Right.
And the wrong person, to be fair. It wasn't right to be in business with them, for me anyway.
How long was that business for? How long did you do that?
I was involved with him for, I would say, about 8 to 9 months, and whilst it was quite successful in its infancy, money was being taken out of the business that I wasn't aware of. So he was very much the financial side of things, and I was sales, because that was my bag.
Yeah.
So it all came to a head, and I realised sort of what was going on and the character I was working with. So I moved on, and just went back into paid employment, still in telecoms.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
What? So at that period, what was? I mean, how do you feel about that now? Like looking back at that, like, do you view that as that experience? I guess that 8 months of. We sort of talked a little bit offline about it, like that sometimes you see them sort of things and we jump in 2 feet. Sometimes that looks like a great thing. Has that held you in good stead, like due diligence wise now, sort of moving forward, looking into that, going, did you maybe jump in a little bit too far on that one?
I think post that period, and a few years later, which I'm sure we'll come on to, when I sort of started another telecoms company, is that when I look back, I've been quite naive, and I've trusted too many people along the way, quite foolishly. I've let them, they do sometimes say, don't they, that salespeople are the easiest people to sell to, and I think I've certainly had a job done on me a couple of times with people I've trusted too much, and just looked at it with rose-tinted glasses. And I think that's certainly something with Rubix over the last 2.5 years. I've grown up very, very fast. So it's
that's really it's fascinating to hear you talk like that, because I think I feel listening to you talking that way, I feel quite similar in that, because I'm very similar to you. Like I believe in the good in people, trust people probably more than I should. And you do get that feeling within the business community. I mean, we've got an amazing community here, there's no question about it, but there's still and when money's on the table and when things, you end up finding a lot out about people, don't you?
Yes.
And the people you can trust and the people you can't.
Yep.
And I think it's a really difficult thing, because I feel like that a few times. I think in my journeys where naive's probably a good word to describe it. It's just because of how you are as an individual, I guess, and that's what. But it's interesting saying how you've sort of learnt from that, I guess, from those experiences. And do you view those as failures? How do you view those two businesses that?
Well, I mean, ultimately, both those businesses went on to fail. But do I see that as a personal failure? I see them as lessons more than anything. I've learnt from them, and I think I said at the top of the show is that I tend not to have regrets. I try and use them as let's move on. We'll put that over there. But I guess I do perhaps with that first business because of knowing now the experience that I have within this industry, knowing what that business could have been.
Yeah.
If only the person that I was working with hadn't been so greedy, you know, we really could have actually turned that into something quite special.
Yeah.
So, but hey, look, life moves on, right?
Yeah,
And,
interesting. It's great that actually, again, talk about that. Like you said, we talk openly about failure. I talk about it on here a lot, and I think that it's that narrative around it. It's like you said, it's more of a. I think that the best quote so far from all the series is a guy called Steve Salis come on, and he said, "There's no failure, there's only feedback." And I love that.
Yeah.
For me, I think that we do ultimately we want to learn from those experiences, whatever they are, good or bad, but they're experiences. And you take what you can out of that and learn, and you sort of move on. But I guess from a mindset point, so after that 8-month period, thinking I've got to go back into employment. Because now we probably talk about it in the way that you say maybe we're unemployable now as entrepreneurs, business owners. We get to that stage sometimes, don't we? You go, I've always been the case, if ever I needed to put food on the table, I'd go, of course you go and work, and you do that for your family. But once that's ignited in you, that first business opportunity, all right, it's not worked out for them reasons you mentioned, and then you've gone back in, was that then ignited them? What, just looking for that next opportunity, or?
No, I think I actually took a bit of a knock
Really?
at that time.
Confidence-wise.
Very, very much so. And to the point where I didn't even know if I wanted to be in telecoms anymore. But ultimately, you can't sit around feeling sorry for yourself. And like you say, you've got to put food on the table, you know, young family and all that there. And looking back now, what I did definitely know at that point is I certainly wasn't ready to start my own thing. And partly because I had no funding to do that, and so I needed to go back into paid employment. So, and you then look and go, well, what do I know? Well, it's telecoms, you know, or it's recruitment, or it's you're already on that path. So, and I ended up going back and working for another telecoms company based up in North London. So, because I think that equally that helped me sort of distance myself from sort of Sussex. So,
which I guess, you know, from a mindset point, what you possibly needed at that time, a fresh start, and go right, I'll come out of the area. And how long did that business carry on for until it didn't work? Like when you come out of it after the 8 months, did it carry on for a long period, or is that when it stopped?
It was about 2 to 3 months after.
Oh, really?
Because he ended up borrowing quite a bit of cash off what was meant to be a friend of his, and just completely disappeared. And I've not heard from him since that day. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. So, it didn't last. Didn't last very long.
And then okay, so let's then move us. You're in North London, and you're you know, working for another telecoms company, building up that more experience. When does that next opportunity come around? How long before that next business opportunity?
So working for those guys, and I'd been there a good sort of 18 months. Would have been about 18 months at the time. And we were running some maintenance, so some support stuff for a couple of other telecoms companies. And one of those companies was based in Kent. And had a conversation with the owner director there one day, and quite liked the look of the company and the outfit and what was being offered for me to go in as their sales manager. So I'd had sort of quite a bit of telco experience by this stage, and so I eventually jumped ship and went over and joined them, and that was in 2005. So January 2005, I joined up with those guys, and stayed there for 6 years. So, and that's really sort of where I guess I learned more about my sort of management style and sort of leadership, if you want for a better phrase.
And I guess like the skills. I know I've obviously done the article in SBT, which I've read through, and we've shared and we spoke about stuff. And one of the things that you talk about quite a lot is actually within the business environment, how much people buy from people.
Yeah.
And I know you're really passionate about something. I'm obviously
Yeah.
written on our thing up there, and
Yeah.
something that where we share very similar values in that sense. And actually, if you're a good person, and when it comes to a sales perspective, that's so key, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Lessons that I guess, where you are now, those lessons learning from all those different sales roles, I guess building those relationships is such a key thing to learn, I guess.
Yeah, it is, and I think that equally that's where, I have clients today that have been with me for a very good number of years. That have followed me and still come to me and for sort of advice on their comms, and so it's about doing the right job for them at the time, and it's not all about earning that quick buck, is it? Because that doesn't work. That doesn't. There's no longevity in that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he's definitely 100%. I agree, and I think that and that's why this community is so amazing, I guess, within Sussex, because it is all about building relationships, isn't it? And people.
Yeah.
And we've got a wonderful community here with so many amazing people that you become friends with, as opposed to as well as just building business relationships is becomes friendship, and that's where, like you say, I guess from your point of view, you've done that over the years, and hence you start Rubix, and people are still going to come. You're going to have clients there because people will trust you, and know, like, and trust is key.
Yeah, and I think that's been certainly within the Sussex business community is that I've been on that network scene for a good number of years, as you know, and but people have always sort of known me as, it's Nick from, as in when I worked at Focus, or it's Nick from when I worked elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I think starting Rubix was a bit of a challenge in terms of, this is now my own gig type thing.
Yeah.
But I have to say thank you to a lot of the Sussex community as well, the business community, in that once they knew that it was truly my own thing, is that they've invested in me in terms of making sure that I've won business, I've won their business.
Yeah, amazing.
And that's been quite powerful, really.
Because I guess it's strange when you're that front man and you're a likeable guy like you are, and you build relationships. I suppose you go out, even when you're wearing a hat of another company, it can be seen as yours because you're passionate about what you do. You go out and you want to deliver, and from now you're employing people. I guess, is that the type of people that you look to recruit, people like yourself who are going to come on board, and you know what, you fit that culture for us because you're going to build relationships as I've built them.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's always been one of my mantras, that wherever I've worked, whoever I've worked for, is I do the job to the best of my ability. Yeah, I'm doing the job, and I'm there as their ambassador. Yeah. That's what so whoever I work for, it's that phrase, cut me in the middle, and I'd read their name, because that's who I was there for at that particular time. And it is something that I've tried to take into Rubix in the people that we take on board. So is that we are. It sounds like a cliche, but we are. It's the Rubix family. Yeah. We've got some great people that work with us.
Yeah.
So.
Love that. And to just, I just want to touch on the second business. You said obviously we've talked about the first business. That second business, what went wrong with that? Where does that come into it? And
so that was that was quite an interesting business. I was working with a company in Kent, say for sort of six years. Yeah. And decided, it just got to the stage where I needed to do my own thing. And these two chaps came along who had been involved in telecoms in a slightly different way. They sort of did some recording, sort of what we call sort of marketing on hold, and they'd had a successful business that had not quite gone the right way eventually, but they were sort of getting back in the game, and the timing was just sort of right for me to move on and do that. And we set up and we started selling. I was bringing the telecoms arm, as in the phone system arm at that stage, and we were incorporating it with their marketing on hold. Unbeknown to me in the background, they'd actually they actually had a lot of contracts from a different company that they'd been involved in, and that they shouldn't have been selling against. And it all came out in the wash very, very early. And I mean, literally within about 3 months, it came out, and it was kind of wow. And it very much did come to the head one day, and I resigned as a director. I knew I needed to run away from these two guys as fast as possible, and it comes back down to that being completely naive, trusting people again, but I knew that I had to run away.
Because I guess when you're in them position, what strikes me as well, we talk about your values as a person and stuff like that, and when you're in that and you're in them positions with the wrong people, both occasions you're looking at it going, this don't sit right with me, and this is not what it's about. Yeah. That comes down to integrity as you as an individual, doesn't it? Which speaks volumes, I think, on a personal level. I think that speaks volumes about you. But talk to me about the financial side of it. Money, was there money involved? Did you lose money on these ventures? Or
yeah, certainly on the second one, I lost money, and again, it kicks your confidence, because you really start to question yourself and some of the decisions that you've made, and it's while still having that, you've still got to provide ultimately. So,
and well, like you said, it's just about to celebrate 25. Me and Kelly have been together a similar amount of time. What was Claire's take on them occasions where would it? Because I'll speak on a personal level for me. Like, I know when things didn't work out at a salon, for example, and we lost money, and on a personal level, I felt I'd let her down, and she, really supportive. But we've been through tough times over the period where she's like, "What's next?" Or why don't you just go and get a job, or go? You know what I mean? Talk to me about that sort of situation.
Very, very similar conversations.
Really?
And Claire has been wonderfully supportive. I wouldn't have got to where I am today without having her by my side. She's been very understanding. And one thing that sort of makes me laugh, that she does sort of recount if she can't sleep at night, she sometimes counts how many jobs I've had. And it's true. I have had quite a few jobs. But you don't know unless you try, right? So, but no, she's been wonderfully supportive. But ultimately, yes, we've had those conversations. You just need to go and get a job. So,
and what when you approach her with Rubix, what's the conversation then?
Well, I was working for a very toxic person at the time, and I jumped out of a very secure job to take this, because there'd been sort of lots of promise of what I was going to get out of it, and I was looking at my exit plan. Ultimately, not getting any younger. So I was looking at my exit plan, took this role, and that was in the October of 2019, and it certainly didn't work out with the person I was working for, and what actually happened is when the pandemic hit, and we're obviously coming up towards the back end of March, and he decided that he wanted to put everybody on furlough. It was the perfect thing for me, and we all got put on furlough. Albeit he did call me a couple of days later and say that although I was on furlough, I wasn't going to get away with it that easy, and I still needed to work. So him and I certainly had a separate conversation around that, and Rubix was as in doing my own telecoms company, was certainly. The timing was most definitely right for me at that point. I was in a much better place financially as well, and headspace-wise, and it was the perfect time to start something. So, the 1st of September, 2020, we're mid pandemic lockdown 1 and all that there, and I'd had a couple of conversations with Claire. Albeit she was incredibly busy, so she didn't stop working all throughout. So she's a social worker by trade, hadn't stopped working, And she agreed that I should, yes, do my own thing. Her words were, "Well, you can't carry on where you are. That's not going to be good for you at all. So you go for it." So I started Rubix, and 1st of September 2020, I'd converted. We've got like an outbuilding at the back of the garden. I'd converted that into my office, and the sun was shining. And it was all good, and I managed to get my first couple of clients over the line, which was good. But what I also started to do at that time was what a lot of people were finding is that they're working at home now. The kids are at home. Everybody's on the main broadband. Excuse me. Everybody's on the main broadband, and so there was a bit of a bottleneck. So what I started, I recognised this, and so what I started to do was to supply that business grade broadband into people's homes, but on no contract. So they could use it for as long as they wanted to. I did that as near to cost as I possibly could to try and provide a service. And I know lots of people did lots of other amazing stuff. Mine's a mere drop in the ocean. But it enabled people the kids could then do their online schooling, watch their videos, but mum, dad, etc. could then work and have their Teams and Zoom calls as everybody needed to at that time. And that's where Rubix started, and we've still got a lot of those connections today because people have just carried them on. So it's that sort of worked quite well. We fast forward slightly through to the end of September, and if you can picture the scene, I was in this garden office, and I was given the opportunity to buy another telecoms company.
Wow. Okay.
So it was quite surreal, really, and it's something that I'd kind of had in the back of my head as a way to grow. So rather than just sort of growing organically, what if I could at some stage buy another telecoms company? And I'd learnt that from my days being at Focus. And good shout out to Ralph Gilbert, to be fair, because he's been a great mentor for me. Ralph and I know each other from back in Cavendish. So when we employed Ralph back then, and him and I sort of rubbed along together quite nicely. But he's been a great mentor in this last sort of 2.5, 3 years, and this opportunity came my way, and it was at the right price because I'd kind of given myself, look, I've got money in the bank here for a year, so I can run this for a year, and and I'm sure within a year I can do something with it. So the opportunity came my way to buy this company, and it was all done, or rather by the base of the company, not the company. It was all done relatively quickly. The deal was done relatively quickly, and I remember walking back into the house. It was a beautiful sunny day, as it was during lockdown.
It was,
very
summer, much so, very much so.
And I walked into the dining room, and Claire had just come down. She's got an upstairs office. She'd just come down to grab some lunch, and she took one look at me, and she said, "What have you done?" And I said, "What do you mean, what have I done?" And she said, "What? I know you've done something. You should just tell me. I haven't got time for it." And I said, "Well, I may have just bought another company." And she just looked at me and she went, "What do you mean you may have just bought another company?" I said, "Okay, I have just bought another company." And she was like, "Oh my God." And with that, she grabbed her lunch and went back up to her office.
Love it.
So, and that was really the start of Rubix. So we bought these circa 150 clients from this company, all telecoms based, a lot of sort of old legacy products that I've since been able to, or the team have since been able to transfer over onto sort of cloud hosted products. And that was really our start, because we'd gone from the 2 or 3 clients that I'd won from September, that I engaged with from September, through to now suddenly we'd sort of had another 150 overnight. But of course that then presents, okay, so how are we going to support these people and that's really where the employment started of Rubix.
Wow, what? Like, what? I mean, there are a couple of things there I want to take out. One, like, you've had a couple of experiences in business that didn't work out, and you go, right, I'm in a position where actually I'm ready to take that next jump, and I'm ready to go again. I guess from a resilience point of view, like, just always got that. Just strike me and listen to you talk. Like, although confidence has been knocked, got that belief in yourself that I can make this work. But to go from that to situations, then a month into to Rubix, go, you know what, I'm going to buy another company.
Yeah,
Mate, that takes some.
it does.
But is it? But does that come from just that underlying, just self? I guess people listening. I guess I'm keen for people listening who may be struggling with a bit of confidence, or just you're living proof, I guess, of that. Just look, if you just believe in yourself and believe in what you're doing and those core values, you can achieve it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, part of that came from I know my industry well, and I knew sort of what I was taking on by buying that business. I knew that I could, ultimately, yes, I'd need to recruit to service and support those clients, but I know the technology that sits behind it, and I have a passion for this industry as well. I wouldn't have been in it so long if I didn't, to be fair. And so it was a leap of faith as well. Of course it was, but go big or go home, right?
Yeah, I love that. But that's for me really interesting, because, like I say, I'm very very similar. Like, I do believe in opportunities. I do believe life's an opportunity. You give things, like you said. You've had so many jobs. I've had many businesses, many jobs, and different things, and I'm still friends now who I grow up with, and will still go to me. Oh, what are you doing now, then, Sam? Like, what's next? Or what are you doing now? Yep. And that's the type of approach. And Kelly, the same. But you go, there's a part of me that you just think, well, actually, life's an. I'd rather do that and go, oh, it's not worked out, but at least I've given it a go, and I know. Do you know what I mean? Rather than always wondering what if, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, equally that comes with that is that we need to be semi-sensible, and I don't think perhaps either of us could do this without having the grounding of a good partner behind us.
100%.
As well. That does keep me in check when I need to be. Although I know she finds it difficult. But
when she walks down for a sandwich, and go, "What have you done?"
Exactly.
I've just bought. It's only lunchtime. I just bought another business. Yeah. I love that stuff. Wow. Okay. Well, so then talk me about the growth. So that's I guess the catalyst. You started Rubix now. You've gone in, bought another business, and then, because the growth over the last couple of years has been phenomenal for you guys. But talk to me about that process, growing that quickly. Like, what does that look like, and some of the insights into that, and the team. Like you said, I guess the first point of call, I've got all these clients. Did the team come with the company you built, or did you recruit right from the start?
No, I had to recruit from the start. But I think that, or I know that then did present issues further down the line, because I always had this underlying thing of, I am the salesperson for this business. I need to be out there bringing business in through the door. And yes, we can. We've just bought a business. There's a certain amount that comes with that. But I still had this fear that unless I was out there selling and bringing that business through the door, then we wouldn't be able to feed everybody. So what that did, and again, lessons learned, what that did is I started to recruit quite heavily. And, we went from, if you can imagine, me on the 1st of September, just being responsible for myself, to very quickly, we had 23 staff.
Wow. By how long? But by that, after you bought that?
We fast forward a bit. By July of 2021, we had it would have been July 2021, we had 23 staff.
Wow.
And that presented problems, financially aside, and what our wage bill was at that point. It presented problems, and my sole idea was that by bringing these people on board to service the clients and grow us and so on and so forth, is that it would free my time up to be out there doing what I do best, and that's people buying communications platforms from me. It had the adverse effect. It ended up tying me to the business, and it got to this day where we had a meeting room in our office where we were at the time, and all of our operation meetings used to take place on a Tuesday. And I would generally get in that room by about 8:30, 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, and I sometimes wouldn't come out until 5:30, 6 o'clock. And it just got to this point one day, Sam, where I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm not running ICI here. I'm not running Facebook or Google. I have a very, very small telecoms company. And things had to change. Things had to change financially as well. Yes, we were bringing business through the door. I'd completed another acquisition of another company, another base buy, albeit a much smaller one within that time period as well. And it was becoming too much of a headache. So things had to change, because in fairness, some of the people that we had, we definitely weren't right for them, and some of those people weren't right for us either. So we had to we went through quite a major sort of restructure of staff. We also moved premises at the end of that year as well, end of 21, and we ended up having to go through quite a major restructure. So it's which has worked. Everybody that left us has ended up in or did end up in gainful employment sort of elsewhere, because that was hard. That was very hard, because I didn't want to put anybody out of a job, and it's that was very, very, very hard to do.
Yeah, and I guess but ultimately, you're in this now, and running that business. Like you said, sometimes we have to take ourselves out of it to look at the bigger picture and to do what's right, because you've got to do what's right for you and your family and the business as a whole. And no one's going to have a job if you go bust, and you've got to make sometimes, and that's the difference why not everyone potentially can run their own business, because there are some really, really tough decisions that need to be made along that line. But I guess I'm really keen then to tap into the culture piece around Rubix, and what you, because of the lessons you learned with the amount of experience you've got over the years, did you have quite a clear vision of how you wanted Rubix to be from a culture point of view, like with your own core values, and was that quite clear from the start in your head, do you think? Or
very much so. From when we started to recruit, I didn't want any of this. I certainly didn't want a hierarchy. I didn't want any of the sort of political drama that goes with it, and it was also to have very much an understanding that everybody that works for the business also has a separate life. They have partners, they have children, they have things outside, and work is not the be all and end all. Is that so we needed to have a certain amount of fun as well, perhaps too much fun sometimes. But again, that's another lesson that I've learned. I think at times I've been too far, too relaxed, and let too much go. But again, that's all been part of my growing up over these last sort of 2.5 years. And it does feel that we've, I'm going slightly off topic now, I guess, but it does feel that when a business starts, it starts very much as a newborn baby, and grows up through those sort of toddler years, teenage, and so on. I sometimes look back and think we were born on the 1st of September, and by the end of October, we were going into young adulthood, and it's mad. It's absolutely mad. But I've taken a lot of lessons along the way. And,
Talk to me about some of them. Give me over that. Because, like you say, it's phenomenal, really. This sort of, about 3 years, coming up to 3 years. I guess September.
3 years is September.
It's not even 3 years yet. But talk to me about some of them lessons then that you've taken out of that growth period and
I think with some of the people that we had, there was perhaps too much trust given, and so that's certainly one lesson. Is also that there's been there's been that odd occasion, certainly in the early days, where I kind of got a bit too confident in thinking, because we'd had very early quick success. I've kind of got a bit too, I've cracked it. I've got the secrets of success here. This is going to be easy. And whilst I didn't perhaps take my foot off the gas in terms of bringing new business through the door, I did perhaps take my eye off the ball and what was actually happening within the business. I mean, I fully take it all on the chin. I fully take every decision that was made on the chin. Ultimately, I was sat there and I said, yes, let's do it. So I've learnt from that. But it's also, I've now taken away from a lot of that, is to just have a bit of reflection time before a decision is now made.
Yeah.
So
that's brilliant. Look, again, it's almost being what we spoke about, but over that, and that's part of the journey of growing up as an adult, but growing up as a business owner and all them things, all those bits that come out of it. Again, back to the point of us both seeing these shiny things over here and going, yeah, that looks great, and we're jumping in. Whereas actually, because you've been burnt a couple of times, because of lessons that you've learned, you do look at those things and go, hang on a minute, I do need to take that time. And that's such a massive, for me, that's a massive lesson. Something I'm still guilty of myself. I'm still trying to check in with myself sometimes to do that, because someone gives me an option. I'm like, yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. I'm in. I'm a yes man. So I'm in, of course.
Yeah.
And trying to learn a good mutual friend of ours I spoke to the other day, and he said, you've got to learn the power of no. I think I'm trying to learn that.
Yeah, and that's quite important, and particularly because I am also about giving back a lot where I can. I'm very much a believer in that we should give back. That I support a number of charities as we both do, and lots of our sponsorship, and I have been guilty of saying yes too quick, too often. We'll do that. We'll do that. Oh, it's a great cause. Yeah, we'll do that. And ultimately, we can't say yes to everything. So I'm learning, or have learned certainly over the last 18 months, more recently, is that we do sometimes have to say no. And that's not because we don't believe in the cause.
It's not because you don't want to, and it's not because you don't want to help or you don't want to support and do everything, but actually you've got to run a business still. That business has still got to make money so that you can support and
absolutely.
give. I think Tim Cobb, I was on here talking to Tim Cobb a while back, and his episode come out recently, but he said exactly that. He said, like, it's great to support all these causes, but do it when you're in a position to do it. And not necessarily just because if you've got a big heart and you want to support these things, that's great, really admirable. But actually, if you're not looking after the business and you're doing all them things, ultimately that business might not be there in a few years to be able to support.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a really key takeaway, certainly from me listening to you. But I'm still let's just still delve around that sort of, again, to sort of growing with that amount of stuff, so then sort of reducing the number of staff that you had, and because you're at the Sussex Innovation Centre now.
That's where we're based now.
Based now, because I've come up to the thing, and a slightly smaller team. But then it does seem like, obviously, just getting to know some of the staff there and coming into that environment, when we obviously done the photo shoot and stuff. That you talk about family, that's the type of impression I got walking into there, like, and to talk to me about that, I guess. From a culture point of view, how does you talk about family and what you've sort of created there? Is there any? I don't know. I guess you're speaking out loud, but is there anything from? I guess we delved into you you're growing up in that sort of family environment. Is that why it's so important to you to create that family environment within the business world, do you think? Or
I think that's probably part of it.
Yeah.
It's also about trying to create that environment where yes, it's work, and and we all have to do it in whatever guise we do it in, but we can also have a lot of fun whilst we do it. And the team that we have today are fantastic. They really are. They are family. So something happens to one of them, we're all there to back up and support them. It might be my name on the door, but we are all colleagues. We all very much work together. We all muck in. We all do what's needed to be done. I'm certainly not the boss. Put it that way. So.
But because listening to you talk again, something I found I really struggled with, certainly at the salon, less so now, I think, and I learned from it, but at the salon, you, as a leader, you've got to lead, and you've got to make the tough decisions, and sometimes, but because you're a nice person, you want to sort of be friends with everyone, and do you find that balance quite difficult to achieve? Like I did at the salon. I found that really difficult to go, and probably the reason it failed is because I wasn't myself, and I wasn't the person who I am usually. So I tried to be this boss, and that's where the culture went completely wrong, because I was someone that I wasn't. How do you get that balance right?
I learnt that many years ago. I think from so taking my first sort of management role within telecoms, I learnt that because I made that mistake of trying to be everybody's friend, and whether it be going out with them or they them needing time off for this or for that, you say you do it, it's fine, but you can't be. There needs to be that demarcation point, and sometimes you do have to be unpopular, but you don't need to be nasty with it. You can. You can say it with a smile on your face, but you can. But my team know that I am completely and utterly approachable. Nothing is off the table.
Because even in the office, it's not like you sort of open plan in your office, isn't it? Like everyone sits together next to each other. They can just come over and chat to you. Yeah.
We're completely open plan. There's no closed doors policies or any of that. But we all just. It's just a really nice, grown-up team. It's everybody knows their job, everybody does their job, and yes, there's times when people need to, need to step out, but we understand that. We all have families, we all have stuff that we need to go and do, right? So, but what I find is by giving people the freedom and flexibility to do that, that it pays dividends. Is probably because they're the right people. They're the right team, but they know that there's no fear. They know that if they need to go and do something, they can do it without that. What's Nick going to say? Type thing.
There's one thing, like a thread that I sort of taken out from a lot of the conversation is listening to you talk about how you've been when you've been employed by people, and you'll go and be an ambassador and the best. And the question I asked earlier about, is that what you look for when you recruit? And that now listening to you talk seems like they're the people you have recruited, that you believe. Like I was at an event the other day and you wasn't, you was away, I think, and Phoenix was there as an ambassador for Rubix, and people now know Phoenix as part of Rubix, and she was there, like you said, as a great ambassador for you, and I can say that from chatting to her, and she was great, and speaking to people and entertaining clients, whatever. But so I think that's such a great thing when you talk about culture and how what you seem to have created there. Certainly, is you've got them ambassadors like people had when you worked for them. You've started to get those people who are there for you, and that's a difficult balance to get, isn't it? Because it's not their business and never going to see it, and it's not, you steal your name above the door, you're still the one that's got the risk on the table, all them things, but ultimately you've created an environment, hopefully, where they still believe in you and they believe in that product and they believe what they're doing and they're part of that.
Yeah, and equally I think that, I'm a great believer in sort of the universe and all of that, and that, you know, like attracts like. But you treat people how you want to be treated. You follow that sort of mantra, then you're not going to go too far wrong, are you? It's yes, there might be some odd ones come along at some point, but you know.
But then that's the great thing with having a strong culture, isn't it? Because you find them people out straight away. It doesn't mean that they're bad people.
Not at all.
It just means that actually you're not right for our culture, so you're going to be better off in a culture over there, and we wish you all the best. That's
Completely.
and I think that's it. When you're adamant and you go, and that's why I always talk about culture, because I know that's why my gut feeling, my high and my heart is that's why the salon didn't work, because I got that culture wrong, and it's the bloodline of a business, isn't it? If you can get that strong culture right, it when you grow, whether you've got, and I'm sure it has to change at a point where you go from 5 staff to 20 staff to 200 staff. Maybe that looks slightly different, but if you've got a strong value there, you can still keep that and you can grow in that method. I guess what you're sort of saying, which is key, mate. That's interesting. And what just touch on there with the. You say about allowing the staff to, you know, it's not just about work, it's about the home. Where does the work-life balance fit for you as a business owner, and pressures that come with running a business and growing it? Obviously, you've got a family and stuff. How does that fit? How do you do that? Are you able to switch off?
I don't think I'll ever be able to truly switch off, and I'm not one for sitting on a beach or sitting around a pool for too long, and that's a concern for sort of down the line, really, as to, you know, what happens, because I could never see myself not doing anything, and I'm always active and doing something, but my switch off, I guess, comes with spending time with people, and, you know, relaxing, whether it's, you know, we're all going out for a nice meal, or, you know, or there's people coming around the house, that type of thing, or spending time with friends and family. That's my sort of switch off. Am I able to ever turn my phone off? No. You know, does my laptop still come on holiday with me? Yes. But those incidences of me working as much when being away have certainly changed, and that's not just in the last 2.5, 3 years. You know, one thing that's always irked Claire, shall I say, is coming back to that working for other people and being their ambassador. Is I've always been available. I've always had my phone with me. I've always had my emails with me or my laptop with me, and will always respond, because I see it as a responsibility. So, but that's certainly with my own gig now. I am finding I'm able to have more away time from working. But again, it comes back to the team. I have complete and utter trust in the team that I have, and I just know that they will do the right thing.
That's incredible. Similar, and I think actually that there's such a blurred line between that work-life balance scenario that we talk about. And I mention it on here a lot, but there is that actually, when you love what you do, is it okay to still be involved? Because that's part of your life, isn't it? It's not that that's over there, and it's all part of that whole, especially when it's your own business. It's all part of the bubble that Rob, our good friend Rob Starr, we both know really well, he talks about it really well. Like, he describes it as, you know, actually, I've got my work-life balance perfect, because my life is this, and work's involved in that, and my kids are involved in that, my writing, my swimming, the challenges I do, the charity, all of them things are all part of this big bubble that's life. It's
all
not
part of the circle.
That's over there, and I thought that was a great way, and it really sat well with me actually when he described it in that way. And as you are now, like, I will take my laptop on holiday because it's part of. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean that I can't switch off and I'm just dedicated. And when you love it and you love what you do and you believe in what you're doing, and it's okay to have that.
Yeah, and it does work. And equally, you know, the team are very much involved in everything that we do. So the events that we put on, you know, the team or certain members of the team will come to. You know, we mix it up a bit. We've got a cognac tasting that we're doing tonight.
Very nice.
Down at Hotel du Van. So which it's. But again, the whole team are involved in us doing that.
Yeah.
So we do some really nice stuff.
Yeah, mate, love it. I love it. Well, look, as always, I just want to talk about the reason I love doing this so much. I love the stories, and I love listening to people's journeys. And we look at obviously where you sort of start, and with any story, and where you've been, and obviously where you sort of going. And with all those, with the Nick Poyner story and the journey, talk to me about what success looks like to you, and how do you define success? Looking at all those, where you've been, where you are now, where you're going, where does success? How do you define that?
So, I guess when I started Rubix, the ultimate plan was that I'm going to do this for 3 to 5 years, build it up, and then sell it on and sail off into the sunset. Well, I could never sail off into the sunset. And I guess that's why I started Rubix in the first place, was because of my exit plan. Not getting any younger, what does it look like? What's changed over the last 2.5, nearly 3 years is I'm actually having a lot of fun in what I'm doing. Yes, we've got some great people around us. We've got some fantastic clients, and I've got various different mentors. You being one of them, Sam. You and I will talk.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's you're part of the Rubix family as much as the next person. So what's changed is I'm having a lot of fun, and what I would hope for in the few years to come is that I don't actually walk away and sell Rubix at all. I think I'm looking for the right people that will come in and ultimately manage it for me, and for us, for them to be part of it, and that just enables me to still be involved and still do the stuff that I do, but with more of an emphasis on I want to get more involved in the charity sort of aspect. And that's really where I see my time being spent, not sitting on a beach somewhere, is that I'm involved in either another charity, or I start my own charity type gig, and work on that and build that up. That's very important to me. Coming back round to that, just that giving back, and doing something.
Mate, I love that, and I think getting to know you as I have, you are very, especially from the rock and roll side of things. I know how much you support them, and know how much that obviously means to me personally, which is amazing. But and you are always forthcoming with your support, even when you can, which is incredible. But it's lovely to see that change, because I guess at the start of that journey with Rubix, with a vision of I'm going to get this to 5 years. Mainly, I'm assuming around a financial goal, because you go, I'll get to that point, there's an exit, I've got a good few quid in the bank, I'm happy.
Yep.
Because I posted very recently about the definition of how I define success, and not actually based around that financial goal, but about the relationships you've built and over the period. And what's amazing listening to you talk about that and describe it in a really great way is actually, I don't want that. Don't be wrong. Of course, we've got to make money for a business to survive, to be able to give things back, etc. And there's nothing wrong with making profits, and of course that's why we're in business. But actually, the narrative changing and going, why would I want to just sell it when I'm loving building this business and continue to build it, and like you said, continuing to build this family, not just within the Rubix people that work for you, but the community that you're building around that with, like you said, yourself and people like Ryan and other people like that within that environment. You just think, what an amazing space to be in, because that's actually ultimately what we're here for, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Build relationships and
completely.
Because it's the purpose actually that we actually thrive on, and what we need. I've spoken about it a couple of times about Kevin Byrne selling Checker Trade and going in a really dark time, because he loved that business.
Yeah.
And he sold it, and he didn't really want to sell it. And you go, because what's next then? Because when you're like we are, we're always going to be thinking of ideas, always want to be involved in something. Am I ever going to just pack up and go home and go, oh,
No, most certainly not. I mean, the one thing that I am about to launch is, well, we're launching it on the 12th of June. So if this goes out before the 12th of June, then you've got a bit of... sorry,
exclusive.
We're launching on the 15th of June. If so this is launched before the 15th of June, then you've got a bit of a heads up. So one thing I've sort of seen within telecoms is that we, our sweet spot for a client is what we call between 20 and 50 users. So 20 to 50 staff. It's nice business to be involved in. It's very easy to deploy, and you tend not to get too many support sort of issues that come up with it. On the other side of things is that there's lots of smaller businesses than that don't even realise that they perhaps need a phone system, or think that a phone system is too expensive. We've got our mobiles, we'll use those, and they're perfectly fine. Yes, you can use your mobile to make and take a call, of course. What our platform enables us to do is we can operate from just one user. We can give you your local number, your 01273 number, or your 01903 number, or it might be, Sam, that you have your business based in Sussex, in Brighton, but you also want it that you want to put out an Eastbourne number, an 01323. So if you were a tradesperson, that might be ideal for you. So came up with this idea of there's an opportunity for this platform that can be really scaled back at a relatively low entry cost to go out to that particular market. So I'm launching a new brand on the 15th of June, and it's called Go Giraffe.
Nice.
What you're going to start to see between now and then is initially giraffes just popping up with no explanation. And we've got a campaign that's going out on global radio, and we're with those guys on Thursday, just finalising the process for that, and where that starts and which stations it's going out on. So we're starting it Sussex based to start with. We're going to have giraffes on buses going around Brighton and Hove, and as far down to Worthing and Eastbourne and along that way. And it's going to have that annoying theme tune, so and with soft toys and all sorts, because I feel that there's equally a way that we can help these start-up and particularly very small businesses to help them communicate a lot better, and giving them the power of a telephone system, but without them having to pay for a complete solution. So being very menu driven, they can just take the parts that they actually need.
Wow.
So
love that. So watch out for some giraffes.
Watch out for some giraffes. Yeah. So.
Mate, that's brilliant. What a cool idea. And actually, you're right. Like, even I look at, we should obviously have a chat about this offline, I guess. But like from Fernball's point of view, we're in loads of different places all around the country, London, Manchester, etc. But actually, I do still use my mobile and everything filters through that. But actually, how ideal would it be to have a centralised number?
Centralised number, but also we'll be able to give you we can give you the ability to have your phone system on your mobile. So you only need the one phone. You don't need to have a desk phone here and a desk phone there. So just via our mobile app, that gives you your phone system. So you can still use your mobile for making your personal private calls, but then via the mobile app, you make your calls via there for your business. Equally, any call that comes in, you're going to be able to identify where it's coming from. So if you wanted to run different campaigns for different numbers, that type of thing, you can have those calls recorded. You can get all your management information reports should you need them.
Love it.
So
Watch this space.
Watch this space.
Mate, how exciting. That's really, and all that sort of answers a little bit of my final question before we come into the quick fire one. So I guess with what the future holds. So other than that, obviously continue to grow Rubix, Go Giraffe. what does the next few years involve with that with you?
I think really coming back around to what we said is that get this next brand off the off the table, and we are looking at another 2 acquisitions. So we've completed 4 to date since 1st of September 2020, which is quite crazy in itself. We have another 2 currently going through, again purely telecoms based, that add clients into Rubix. But I think just bringing it full circle as to, to what we said is that it then enables me and gives me the opportunity to go off and do what I really want to do, that passion of being involved in a charity somehow.
Yeah.
So it's...
Mate, fantastic. Look, it's such a brilliant conversation. I've loved chatting to you, and as I knew it would be. Like I said, I think on a way back from the Best of British, we almost recorded a podcast, didn't we? Just sitting there chatting away, and I was like, mate, I can't wait. So I'm really glad that we got here. Just before we jump into the quick fire questions, because I've changed a couple of them. Just one, because I know obviously there was a couple that you answered previously in the magazine, and there was one I just wanted to touch on where you it was asked. I always ask this, and I said, "What advice would you give to your teenage self?" And you answered it in the magazine, saying, "I'd start my own gig." I'm keen to just tap into that a little bit and go, with the experiences that you've got now, would you still look back to your teenage self and say, "Go and start your own gig" at that young age?
Yes, if I'd been given the opportunity, I very much would. And that's one thing. So with my own kids, my middle one, who went off, qualified as a PT, and he's things like everybody's, I need to earn money, is that he's been very much given the opportunity to start his own gig. And he's started a private members gym in Hurstpier Point. He's got involved very much with that, and he's now doing these weekly classes, and he's got summer classes coming up. He's got a football camp coming up, and he's really he's definitely got that entrepreneur spirit. It's very much a passion for it. He has very much a passion for it. You can see that, but he's very much got the support behind him. And so going back to my own time is that had I had that sort of right support at that point, then I would very much have started my own thing.
I'll tell you one reason because I often think that the reason I go into schools now and I try and encourage entrepreneurship as much as possible. One of the reasons I wanted to start this, so we can a platform to share people's stories and inspire to do that. But there is an element of me. I think same as you. I'd go, you know what? If I knew what entrepreneurship was back at 16, I would have started my own thing. Yep. But then there's the other side I sort of still look at and go, because of as we mentioned before, everything happens sort of for a reason. That you go along that line and go, actually, would I have been ready back then to start it? Would I have been ready to start my own business? Have I got to the point and the resilience I've built up and the personality I am now, that actually 30 maybe it would have been the right time? Because if I had started that salon at 18 and it had failed, how would that have affected me at a younger age? I'm just keen to, have you thought about like that sort of sense? Because I'm similar to you. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm similar. That would be my thing. But I am torn with the fact of actually I'm okay with that it was delayed, because the fact that I've got more experience and I was probably in a better headspace then to do it.
I think it's a very valid point that you make, and I'm sure that I would have had more failures along the way had I started my own thing then. But flipping that on its head is that I would have taken the lessons from those failures, and I think ultimately what that would have done is that would have led me to have started my true gig earlier than I did on the 1st of September 2020.
Brilliant answer. brilliant answer, and agree with you. You know what? I agree, because like you say, the key back again is how much we learn from our failures, and that's and similar to you with your kids. With mine, I love them to go to me. I've got this idea. I'm going to go, and they'd have my back in, and I'll go out there, and I want them to fall over, and no one wants to foul, and I'll get that. Don't want them to foul, but if they do, I want them to get back up, and then they go again.
Absolutely. I just again, maybe we'll stay on the subject, but my daughter, who's just turned 17, she's very good academically, and she's very good musically. So her instrument is her voice, and she's done some amazing stuff already. She's done a couple of sort of fantastic gigs already, and she's brilliant. I know she's my daughter, and I'm very biased, but she is truly brilliant. And she was accepted into Basvik to kind of similar go down the law sort of road, but she was also accepted into BIM, the music college, and she was torn, very much torn. And whichever she did, she would be very, very successful at. But she was torn because music is her passion, but she kind of felt that but Basvik's what I should be doing, because that's the academic thing and that's what people do. And her and I sat and had a conversation, and I said to her, look, how old are you? At the time she's 16. And I said, is that coming up 16, I think she was then, is that it doesn't, go and do what your passion is. And she was, but what if music doesn't work out in a couple of years? I said, well then, you can go and do the Basvik thing. Then you can go down the academic road if that's what you want to do. The main thing is that she has the support there to be able to make those choices. Yeah. And I think that's where, and one thing that we're looking at with the Star Trust in what we're doing with the kids there, is being that kids, young adults today, they should have those choices to go off and try different things without having to grow up and be that adult immediately.
Oh, mate, I absolutely love that. 100%. And you mentioned the Star Trust thing and a link, and obviously what Rob is looking to achieve, and I completely agree. And it's such an amazing message, because, and for not just our kids, but anyone out there listening, you just think, do something. We're a long time there. Do something you're passionate about. Yeah. Wherever you are in your career, whatever you're doing, if you're not happy doing that, find what you're passionate about and go and give that a go. Yeah. Because you know what? Like, what is the other alternative? We spend a long time doing stuff that we don't enjoy doing, and from a kid's point of view as well, what an amazing thing for you to. Because you're right, there is that security blanket. Because society tells us that's what we need. We need a security blanket. So go out and get the thing that's going to give you that. Become a lawyer or them things. Go down that path where maybe there's no less security, but you know what? I'm going to have a great time doing it and find out what that. And who knows as well? Who knows where that path leads?
Follow your passion. Yeah. But it has to come from you. Yes, you can find help along the way, but you have to have that desire to get up and want to do it in the first place.
Brilliant. Mate, absolutely love it. Look, we're going to finish our quick fire questions. I'm going to throw these ones at you, okay? Who is the person you would most like to say sorry to but haven't?
This is a difficult one. I mentioned him earlier. He got me up to London and and helped me get that for that first job. And he passed away in January 2017. He was a lifelong friend. He was a couple of years older than me. He'd been to the same school and stuff like that. But he was a larger than life character, and by that I mean he was a big chap, and he was bullied at our school, and that's I think where him and I struck up that sort of friendship, because I used to stand up for him and stuff like that, and we just sort of became very good friends through that. and he was very good to my children as they were growing up. But he certainly in the last couple of years of his life, he was properly struggling. I mean, this guy was a good 35 stone, and I met him for the very last time. I took him out for his birthday in October 2016. We met up at Charing Cross Station, of all places, and I was taking him out for dinner, and he couldn't walk 50 yards without having to stop, and he was so yes, overweight, but he was he had such a bad chest. And I briefly said to him, "Have you been to the doctors?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, it's nothing, it's just a cold, it'll be fine." And I just kind of I didn't want to, and this is where the sorry bit comes in, because I didn't want to, I guess, challenge it. I didn't want to mention the elephant in the room, in that he needed help. And January 2017, I got a call to say that he died. And that was tough, really tough. And the sorry bit comes in to him is that I wish I'd had the courage to challenge him and call it what it was and help him. Because would it have ultimately made a difference? Maybe, maybe not. But we'll never know. But to answer your question, that's who I would like to say sorry to, for not standing up and at least trying to help him.
Well, mate, thanks for sharing that.
I'm sorry that puts it down on things.
No, mate, honestly, I'm just grateful for, like I say, I guess for people coming on here and sharing their stories and sharing things that like that, and ultimately getting to know more about the people that are sitting opposite me, and that's just a touching thing to share. So thank you for sharing that with us. And mate, we're going. We've got a couple more to go. Okay. Yep. If you had to choose one, what piece of advice would you like the listeners to take away from our conversation today?
The answer to this is something that I don't know where it came from, but it actually popped up on my Facebook yesterday for something that I'd shared or I'd typed quite a few years ago, and it's follow your dreams. Because if you don't go after what you want, you'll never have it. If you don't ask, well, then the answer's always no. It's if you don't step forward, you're always going to be in the same place. And if it changes your life, if you get the chance and it changes your life, then let it. Nobody said it would be easy. They just said it'd be worth it. Now, I don't know where that originally came from. Why I originally shared it. Maybe I'd had a couple of glasses of wine when I originally wrote it. I don't know, but it's something that I do stand by. What I do truly believe in is that it's out there. Just go and find what's there for you.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Love that. Mate, gold. Can you recommend a book or podcast to our listeners that has had an impact or influence on you?
Yeah, The Chimp Paradox.
Brilliant.
By Steve Peters.
Yeah.
Awesome book or podcast or audio book. If you've not read it, listen to it, go get it. It completely and utterly helped me.
Brilliant. You know what? There's a kids version of it as well,
okay.
And I've got it we read it to Luke and Sienna now.
Oh, brilliant!
There's a kids version of the
brilliant.
My Chimp.
I wish I'd had that book many years ago.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. And guess this is similar and related maybe to the previous statement, but your one rule for living a fulfilled life.
Have fun. And just treat others like you want to be treated. It's that simple.
Mate, what a brilliant conversation and a great way to finish. And so grateful for you coming on and sharing so openly, really, and honestly with me. And hopefully people getting to know you even more by sharing so many stories as you have done with us in your journey with us. So, mate, thanks so much for your time. It's been a brilliant episode, and I can't wait to share it. And listen, just wish you continued growth and success with Rubix and go giraffe.
Go giraffe.
Yeah. Look out for them giraffes, everyone. Brilliant.
Thanks, Sam. It's been a real pleasure. Really has.
Amazing. And that, as they say, sir, is a wrap.